Welcome to another episode of Test Chamber. I'm Kimberly Wallace, and I am here with Juba, who recently reviewed I Am Setsuna.
Right, I Am Setsuna. This is from a little studio within Square Enix called the Tokyo RPG Factory that was founded sort of with the goal of kind of like bringing back the old school style of, classic role-playing game.
Oh, Square finally realized people wanted some of that?
Yeah, I mean, Square has been offering that sort of thing on mobile phones and stuff.
Yeah, but not like an actual, I like that this is on PS4 because I miss playing RPGs on my big screen, after a while. But yeah, they realized that people wanted these games and they didn't have to put a ton of money into them.
Yeah, and in some ways that lack of money maybe shows. But so what we've got here is... basically, the story for I Am Setsuna is if you've played Final Fantasy X, you'll actually be very familiar with it because the basic idea is that, so you have this person in your party, there's Setsuna there down at the bottom, and everyone else that goes with her is sort of like a guardian, and her job is to sort of go to this fabled place kind of at the end of the world and sacrifice herself to stop these monster attacks that are plaguing the world.
When I demoed this and I played about an hour in, I was like, all right, I'm not sure if this story's going, but I really hope it kind of diverges from what is Final Fantasy X. Like, I was hoping that there was something there that wasn't exactly the same or that connection wasn't as strong as I was feeling based on playing an hour.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obviously not note for note exactly the same, but I mean, there are definitely elements of it that are very similar.
Oh, look at that guy. He looks like...
Yeah, if you like Auron from Final Fantasy X, you will also find Meter familiar, but I don't actually mean to put it down a whole lot because it is very, very classically styled in that sense. A lot of the characters sort of adhere pretty closely to I guess what you'd expect from certain archetypes. It really uses Chrono Trigger a lot as a sort of basis, and it's not, but I think that's one of those things where it's like Chrono Trigger is held in such high regard that anytime you would say this is like Chrono Trigger and it sort of bears that out in some way.
It puts high expectations.
Your reflex would be to say like, oh, well, more Chrono Trigger. That's great. And I think where the problem for me anyway comes in is that it doesn't go far enough beyond its sort of like classic inspirations, right? So
yeah, that's great as an inspiration, but it also needs to kind of do more than just that.
Yeah.
And a lot of time has obviously passed since that game, and it still has that that legacy. But also, what is this doing to kind of take things at least a step further? You know?
And you'd think with the time that's passed and with modern technology at our disposal that there would be more to it than that. And so I guess that's why for me, I'm a little disappointed by how closely it sticks to like old school archetypes, old school conventions and stuff like that. And not that I want some of that in there.
Oh yeah, for
sure.
But
I also want something that I haven't seen before too. And that's, I think, where this sort of falls away. Because I mean, like when you look at Chrono Trigger, one of the reasons that was as beloved as it was is that it did different things. It had like a storyline that you couldn't really predict, that did a lot of clever things. It had like weird party members, and each of those party members sort of got their place got their time in the spotlight, and that's not necessarily going on here to the same degree. They borrow a lot of similar, I mean, as you can see from the overworld here, this is very Chrono Trigger. We'll get into a battle in a little bit, and that's very Chrono Trigger. But, for the most part, it doesn't do much for me, it didn't do much to set itself apart, or not enough to really make it that, like, wow. Like, it doesn't capture the same thing that, for instance, Radiant Historia on DS did for me, which was like classic in a lot of ways, but also new in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So here we'll get into some
But
fights.
you actually really did like the combat in this.
Yeah, so the combat has a lot of interesting elements to it.
Hey, I know that attack.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, it makes me sort of wonder, like, did they just think what people liked about Chrono Trigger was names like X Strike, or because obviously there's more to it than that.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so there are lots of nods like that. But what we want to pay attention to in combat here are those little blue spheres next to them, and they fill up, and they get those little glowing blue dots like they do over there. Okay, so now those are all there. So what that is momentum mode. So I'm going to do a combo attack with Endear and Eterna here, which is X Strike. So we did that once. That was basically just the normal version of the attack. Now we're going to augment it by pressing a button at the right time, and it's going to spend those momentum points. But it also added
so
additional
gives it like a
damage.
buff.
Right. But it doesn't necessarily need to just add attack or like add damage. So we'll do this provoke move with Neater here. And
this is random, right? Like you don't know what it's going to add.
You do.
Oh, once you do it?
Each attack has its own, does the same thing when it's momentum boosted every time. So because I boosted that protect, it also, or that provoke, it also increased his defense, which it wouldn't have done if I had just done the skill normally, So now for Eterna here, like she'll do protect. Let's see what it does if I boost it. Then it makes the spell last longer. So every time you boost that kind of thing. So where the fun comes in on this is sort of when the battles get challenging, is deciding when to sort of reserve and when to spend your momentum points. And then you get a bunch of different kinds of kills when things go down. And
do you get more experience for kills or
not
anything?
those, but the kind of kill you get determines what kind of item you get, and the items in turn determine what you get from like what kind of techs you can access.
Oh, cool.
We'll get to that in a little bit here. So anyway, so that's sort of the very basic rundown of how combat works.
Look at you in the snow.
Yeah, so that's another thing. Actually, it's really awesome when you see it at first, because like, wow, look at that. Like,
but
it's
then
really cool.
all you're looking at is snow, right?
But it's like just snow everywhere. And it's a cool aesthetic choice at first, but the lack of variety really starts to wear on you after a while, because like you're always just like, it's always just like a snowy cave or a snowy field or snowy this or that. It's snow everywhere all the time.
One thing that really impressed me when I was playing through the demo that I did was the music of this game. And I wonder, with that, like, everything sounds great, but does that have the same thing where how much variety is there with the tracks that you get?
The music is actually one of my favorite parts of the game. Even though it's really heavily focused on these like piano only things. They do a really good job of conveying a good sense of the game's tone, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it.
Oh, yeah.
The game has a sort of like pervasive sadness to it, even though like the story definitely has like moments of levity to it. It takes itself pretty seriously. And
I mean, this girl is going to sacrifice herself. Right, I would hope it would take it a little seriously. Hey, what's that? Can you pick up stuff in the grass then?
Yep,
right
so that's
there?
how you find like ingredients and stuff. You find those around in the world. I just ran away from that fight. Used something called a fog stone.
Oh, no.
It doesn't give you a standard like runaway option. You need to use an item. Another weird thing about it, this isn't necessarily a complaint either, but like there aren't inns in the game. So all of your recovery basically needs to be done through like when you level up, you get your HP and MP refilled.
Oh, yeah.
Or you just need to buy items to do it.
How is the game with like money distribution? Like, is it generous?
Yeah, and I was never strapped for cash. all the money really constrains you from, I feel like, is like you can't always buy the best weapon for everyone all the time.
You were saying you don't really need that because all the weapons are pretty good, even like one below it. I read Joseph's review, apparently.
yeah. Well, I'm actually laughing at this part here. So there's this spirit that this little guy is like, hey, we should leave him alone. And you have an option, and I chose attack him. It's like, stop, don't. He won't do us any harm.
She won't let you.
And then you won't.
Yeah.
So like it's one of those where it's like it's kind of frustrating in that sense too, because like the game gives you a choice, but I don't know that I ever encountered a time where I felt like my choice was actually like respected or acknowledged.
I've never understood that, why a game would even give you dialogue. Like they spend all this time like giving you two ways to like, you know, command your dialogue, and then it really doesn't do anything. It's like wasted time into something that would serve it better.
Yeah. So for your question about weapons, it's like there are you do want good weapons, but like I never felt like I was underpowered, even if there was a time when it was like, or even if there was a time when I didn't have everyone equipped with all their best stuff. And then there's also the thing of like you have like multiple party members. That thing, that column on the right side gets filled up. I mean, like there are another 3 or 4.
Now, if they're not in the party, do they get experience?
They do actually.
Okay, that's good.
It doesn't. It seems like they don't get it at the same rate. They may
not as much, but
yeah. So, but I mean, so as you see, I'm sort of walking through the snowy area. That looks cool.
Mm-hmm. Like
but like
diorama.
most of the world looks like this, you know. So it's that lack of variety is maybe not great. So here we're looking at a story moment where we're basically trying to get an airship, so we can.
Oh, an airship, you say?
Yeah. Well, we want to get an airship so we can take Setsuna to these like last lands that she needs to go to. But before we do that, I want to show a little bit about how some of this works. So this is your basic. So this is how you
look at the little cute guys.
Yeah. You see little sprite versions of them. So this is how you like buy stuff. This talisman thing is okay. Here's what we have to do. We're going to spend a few minutes in the menus. Because
my favorite thing to hear.
I know that's everyone's favorite thing. So the way techs work in this game are unlike a game like Chrono Trigger, where you just learn them. You need to equip them in this game. So actually, maybe I can get some new ones from where we're. This is loading an older save of mine, so I'm kind of don't remember exactly where everything is at this part in the game. But so instead of just learning abilities, what you need to do is trade for them. So you do that with these guys from the Magic Consortium.
So are you constantly giving one up to get another one, a better one?
So what you're selling are these materials more often than not. So you
don't sell the king onion.
Okay, we'll leave the king onion. But like, so when you look at these ingredients, they tell you what skills they are used for. So for hexagonal pendant there, I need to sell 1 hexagonal pendant and 2 powdered bones to be able to buy 1 slow. And then, so the same thing goes here for the spell Ultimate Truth.
And can you only equip 1 at a time?
You can equip multiple ones, okay. But the ones that you have at your disposal depend on what resources you've sold and what ones you have.
And what does the green mean?
The green, these are like ingredients that are used in cooking, I think. The cooking system, again, I thought was a little bit not fleshed out. But so once you've sold these things, you go into obtain Spritnite, and these are your techs. And you can go in and buy the ones like I don't have Blade Wave yet, so I'm gonna cash in those things and get Blade Wave. I'm gonna get Backslash. Those would be good examples, I think. Get some in Thunder. It shows you how many you have the materials to buy.
So you could get multiple ones for the same character if you wanted to, per se. I wouldn't do that to build my party because, that's...
Well, but they're also specific. So, like, see, it says usable by Eterna. So, like, I don't know why you'd necessarily want multiple ones of the like character specific ones. But okay, so I think we have a bunch of them. This isn't like, well, okay, so here's what we're going to do.
You aren't kidding. You have a lot of money.
Some of these also can be used by all. And these are what they call support Sprite Knight. So anyone can use support ones.
Oh, okay.
The command ones are specific to
party members.
Yeah,
certain party members.
So we bought a bunch of those. So this is how the rundown usually works. Is then you go into your menu and see Endir here he has 4 slots available for his skills. The top 3 I think are the ones that are tied to just like where your level is. The bottom one depends on what talismans you have equipped. So he has steel snowflake equipped, which you see under where it says slots. It gives him an additional A slot. That means any Sprite Knight can go there, command or support. But if I give him Aqua Heart,
he gets 2 things.
Instead of the 1A, he's going to have a C and an S that he can put in there. But here's where that gets a little bit confusing.
You constantly have to go in the menus, right, to see all that.
There's a lot of menu stuff to go through, but it also gets confusing in that, like, take a look at the variety of talismans that you can get. And, like, it's because you're not just getting them solely based on the slot that they offer. Mm-hmm. These all offer 1A slot. But you're also getting them based on their flux bonus and their bonus effect.
That one doesn't have one. I don't like it.
Which
do any of them here have one bonus
this
effect?
This is maybe a little early in the game for the bonus
huh?
effects.
Gotcha.
So we're going to talk about flux bonus again. We're going to get to that in a second.
What's more important, flux bonus than bonus effect?
Yeah, flux bonus is probably more important. First, we're just going to go through the basics of, like, so you basically just equip this stuff, right? Like, let's get Blade Wave in there and why Setsuna. So when we go to the party thing, we can see what double techs we can currently execute. So Nidar, I don't even know if that's how you say his name, but that's what I called him. So Nidar and Endir can do Blow Beat, and Endir and Eterna can do X Strike. But
if you change it,
if I take away Endir's Shock, they can't do Blow Beat anymore. Ooh. So part of this gets to be problematic, and this is one of my complaints about it, is that, like, if I just want to know, if I want to know what techs I can do, you basically need to go into, like, your combos. And right now it's not complicated because I only have a couple party members who can do things. But later in the game, that whole menu is just full of various different techs and stuff that not all of your characters can perform by default. They need to equip the right things for it, right? So then you end up going back and forth between that screen and this screen, being like, okay, so for Endir and Eterna to be able to do this, she needs to have that. But, you know, like,
who wants to spend that time in menus?
It gets a little frustrating, especially when you need, like, if you find one party and stick with them, then that's fine. But you kind of want to check out different party members. So every time you throw someone else in the mix, like if I'm using, Eterna, Setsuna, and Endir, and I want to get another party member in there, all of a sudden that new party member in the mix might change how I want Endir and Eterna's Sprite Knight setup and stuff. So anyway, that's boring menu stuff, but that's actually part of what makes the game, on one hand, it's part of what makes it clever. But the system just seems a little bit, like, unnecessarily complicated. Or if not even complicated, it's not as user-friendly as it could.
Yeah. A little tedious to go through all that.
Yeah. So this is the shipwright guy that we were supposed to talk to.
Look at that hair.
Yeah, he's something else. And Kerr, that little guy on the far right, ends up joining us eventually. But this is when you first meet him, he's not actually a combat.
Joe, who's your favorite party member?
Boy, that's a good question. My favorite party member is one that we don't have yet.
Oh, bummer.
You get a woman with like a cool lance.
Nice.
And yeah, she ends up. I mean, she's my favorite, just like in terms of the story and design.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up not using her very often. My general party that I landed on was Endir, Nidar, and Setsuna there, because they have a pretty great mix of like offense, defense, support, and healing.
Well, yeah, you always got to go with that.
Yeah, I mean,
the
like
ones you like.
in my mind, like their sort of latent abilities are the ones that are the best suited to that. But I mean, like, if you like a party member, it's not like you can't make them work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's not like Eterna is totally useless.
Yeah.
If you really like her, you can bring her along, and
you'll find a place for her within something.
And especially too, this game is not challenging, which on one hand is a little bit disappointing.
Because you think the people who would be interested in a game like this are pretty seasoned RPG players, would be my guess.
Yeah,
you know?
There's that element of it. And then I think there's also the element that, like, if you have all of these complicated systems about, like, the way combat works and the way that you equip things and to make it, like, to make players want to experiment with the different techs that they have available and stuff, if you really want to dive in and, like, show people the systems that you've made, you kind of have to make the game require it. And it not until much later in the game do you get to a part where it's like you actually need to understand how like your all of your support skills and things like that work. And that happens really, really sharply. Like for me anyway, there was one, like the game was a total cakewalk, and then there was one boss that just destroyed me several times in a row until I got a sort of random effect that made that fight doable for me.
But so you could be playing this game and not realize that, and not really engage with the systems that much and be okay, and then just get to that point and just be like, oh man, I should have been experimenting more with.
I think so, but at the same time, I also don't think that it's so hard that anyone who's gotten that far in the game is going to just be like totally lost or anything. But
this is definitely some old school dungeon design.
Yeah, so we've got another sort of like there are a lot of snowy fields and snowy caves.
Well, do they at least change color, Joe?
Sometimes, not always. But there's another thing I want to talk about with these skills.
Enemies are cute. It almost makes you not want to hurt them. It's like Secret of Mana all over again. Rabbites.
Yeah. So we'll do, let's wait for Blow. Oh, wait, I took Blowbeat away. I can't do it. Great.
That's what you get for trying to show the people how the systems work, Joe.
So when you do momentum mode, this is when those like flux bonuses come into effect that we saw on the Sprite Knight that you have, or on the Sprite Knight, on the talismans that you have equipped. The talisman that you have equipped and those abilities that it has, like let's say bonus damage or something like that. Here we go. This is a good one. Combo power. I was hoping that would happen. So when you use momentum mode and then use on a skill, there's a chance that the ability that you have on your talisman will transfer to the Sprite Knight that you used in momentum mode. And then that Sprite Knight gets more powerful. So in this case, there's an additional like combo power on Cyclone.
What other kind of skills would it add in?
Well, we can take a look at talismans. So it's like you can get so your ATB might go faster. Combo power goes up there.
So you're constantly like pushing, like leveling that up in a way,
right? So
getting more powerful with those.
So if you want so we can take a look at like see how Cyclone has that one little notch over on the far right there. That just got added to it. Like I just used it in momentum mode as part of a tech, so it got combo power. So now when I use combos that have Cyclone, they get a little bit stronger because of that.
That's cool.
So again, it's a deep system, but it's not super like necessary, and B, a little bit convoluted and not necessarily like really well explained. But once you understand it and get into it, like I guess I can't say I got super addicted to it or anything because the game so rarely actually like requires you to understand how all that works. That stuff doesn't really get important until like probably the last quarter of the game or something. So, you know, ultimately, I guess I'm sort of going back and forth on it because like there are things about this that feel like a lot like some wasted potential and things that are frustrating about it. At the same time, like I really like this style of game. I liked playing these games back in the era that it's sort of emulating. So it's hard to say that it's like it's not a bad thing to have another game like this that even though it hits some familiar notes, there's something comfortable about that too.
Yeah.
But almost too comfortable in the sense of like it doesn't really grab you by going above and beyond. It seems content to just deliver like something that feels sort of like a very predictable and sanitized version of something that you already like. Which again, not necessarily terrible.
A lot of people have been just, would like to just have something in that vein. And I think it definitely gets there. It's pretty. I like the music. Yeah. So I guess bottom line is like, if you are one of the people who have just been waiting for another game in the vein of Chrono Trigger, like you will probably enjoy, or at least, have some fun with I Am Setsuna. Is it the like glorious return for the genre that you might hope it is? No. But like it's more of a style of game that has been, waning in recent years, and there's something that's fun about getting back into it. So but it seems like it just it won't remain as memorable as a game like Chrono Trigger or those characters and everything about that game that is great.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it's still like a fun ride for the most part, just doesn't have that lasting impact.
It definitely scratches an itch, but not in a way that is as triumphant or genre saving as I think some people would have liked to have seen. But so that's my 2 cents. That's I Am Setsuna. You can read my review on GameInformer.com right now. It's gave it a 7.5, which is like an average.
Yeah,
not bad, not amazing,
decent.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's Joe's gonna beat up these adorable penguins, but I think that's how we close it out with some cuteness, right?
Sorry, penguins.